The night is still. A chill wind whispers through ancient trees. Shadows dance in the flickering light of a lone candle. It is a night for stories. Stories whispered in hushed tones. Stories of the undead. Stories of vampires. From time immemorial, the shadows have held their breath. They whisper of creatures that stalk the night. Creatures that hunger for the warmth of life. Creatures that we call vampires. But where did these legends begin? What is the true origin of these creatures of the night? The history of vampires is shrouded in mystery. Ancient tales speak of demonic beings and bloodthirsty spirits. These tales are found in cultures across the globe. They suggest a deep-seated fear of the undead, a fear that has haunted humanity for centuries. Let us delve into the darkness. Let us uncover the chilling origin of the first historical vampire. The earliest mentions of vampires are lost to antiquity. Fragments of tales survive on crumbling clay tablets and ancient papyri. They tell of demons and spirits that preyed on the living. These entities craved blood and spread disease. In ancient Mesopotamia, the Eckamu were restless spirits. They roamed the underworld seeking vengeance. They were blamed for illnesses and misfortunes. They were often depicted with sharp teeth and claws. They thirsted for the blood of the living. Similarly, ancient Egyptian mythology warned of the dangers of the night. Malevolent spirits and vengeful deities could rise from their tombs. They would drain the life force from unsuspecting victims. Protective amulets and rituals were used to ward off these dangerous beings. These ancient beliefs laid the foundation for the vampire myth. They established a connection between death, blood, and the supernatural. A connection that would resonate throughout history. While ancient myths laid the groundwork for the vampire legend, it was certain historical figures who helped solidify these terrifying tales in the collective consciousness. Among these figures, none is more infamous than Vlad III, Prince of Wallachia, better known to history as Vlad the Impaler. Vlad the Impaler's reign of terror in 15th century Romania cemented his place in the annals of history and the nightmares of his enemies. His name alone evokes images of unimaginable cruelty and bloodshed. The landscape of 15th century Romania, with its imposing castles and dark forests, provided the perfect backdrop for Vlad's brutal rule. His stronghold, the Punari Castle, perched high on a cliff, was a symbol of his unyielding power and ruthless governance. Vlad was not just a ruler, but a warrior of unmatched ferocity. His military campaigns were marked by a level of brutality that shocked even his contemporaries. He was a master of psychological warfare, using fear as a weapon to keep his enemies at bay. His most notable adversaries were the Ottoman invaders, who sought to conquer his lands. Vlad's defense against them was nothing short of legendary. He employed guerrilla tactics, ambushes, and scorched earth policies to devastating effect. But it was his preferred method of execution, impalement, that earned him his gruesome moniker. This method was not only a means of punishment but also a psychological tool to instill fear and submission. Vlad would have his enemies impaled on sharpened stakes, often in large numbers, creating forests of the dead. The stakes were driven through the body slowly, prolonging the agony and ensuring a slow, excruciating death. This method of execution was designed to be as painful and humiliating as possible. The victim's suffering was meant to serve as a stark warning to all who dared oppose him. Stories of Vlad's cruelty spread throughout Europe, carried by merchants, travelers, and diplomats. These tales painted a picture of a ruler whose thirst for blood knew no bounds. He became known for his insatiable bloodlust, a reputation that would follow him long after his death. Some whispered that he bathed in the blood of his victims, a macabre ritual that only added to his terrifying legend. While these stories were likely exaggerated, they contributed to the growing legend of the vampire. The image of a ruler who drank and bathed in blood was too compelling to ignore. These tales of blood and cruelty intertwined with local folklore, giving rise to the vampire legends that would later be popularized in literature and film. Vlad the Impaler may not have been a vampire in the literal sense, but his actions provided a real-life model for the monstrous beings of legend. His reign of terror left an indelible mark on history. The stories of his cruelty and bloodlust have endured for centuries, serving as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can dwell within the human heart. His name became synonymous with cruelty and bloodlust, a legacy that continues to haunt the annals of history. Vlad the Impaler serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can dwell within the human heart, a darkness that, once unleashed, can leave a trail of blood and terror that echoes through the ages. Section 4. Countess Elizabeth Bathory, the Blood Countess. The 16th century saw another figure emerge who would become inextricably linked with the vampire myth, Countess Elizabeth Bathory of Hungary. Born in 1560, she was a member of one of the most powerful Protestant families in Hungary, a family that had produced kings, cardinals, and knights. Her early life was marked by privilege and education, but also by a series of traumatic events that some believe may have influenced her later actions. Known as the Blood Countess, Bathory's alleged crimes shocked even the most hardened individuals. Her reign of terror began in the late 16th century and continued into the early 17th century, during which time she was accused of torturing and killing hundreds of young girls. The sheer scale and brutality of her actions have cemented her place in history as one of the most infamous female serial killers. Her insatiable thirst for blood and beauty cemented her place as one of history's most infamous figures. Bathory was said to be obsessed with maintaining her youthful appearance, a fixation that led her down a dark and twisted path. Her beauty, once admired by many, became a source of her downfall as she sought increasingly macabre methods to preserve it. Bathory was born into a noble and powerful family. Her family's influence and wealth provided her with opportunities that were rare for women of her time. She was well educated, fluent in multiple languages, and known for her intelligence and charm. However, beneath this veneer of sophistication lay a darker side that would eventually come to light. She was intelligent and beautiful, but her beauty began to fade with time. As she aged, her fear of losing her looks grew, leading her to explore increasingly desperate measures to retain her youth. This fear of aging and the lengths she went to combat it would become central to the legend that surrounds her. Driven by a desperate desire to retain her youthful appearance, she turned to increasingly disturbing practices. It is said that she dabbled in alchemy and the occult, seeking out potions and rituals that promised eternal youth. Her obsession with these dark arts only fueled the rumors and fear that surrounded her. Rumors circulated that Bathory believed bathing in the blood of virgins would restore her youthful glow. These tales, though likely exaggerated, painted a picture of a woman driven to madness by her vanity. The idea of using blood as a means of rejuvenation was not entirely unheard of in her time, but Bathory's alleged methods were far more gruesome and sinister. She is said to have lured young peasant girls to her castle. These girls, often promised work or education, would enter the castle's gates never to be seen again. The disappearances of these young women eventually drew the attention of the authorities and the local community. Once inside, the girls were subjected to unimaginable tortures. The accounts of what happened within the castle walls are harrowing, with descriptions of beatings, mutilations, and other forms of extreme cruelty. These stories, whether entirely true or not, contributed to the terrifying legend of the Blood Countess. Bathory allegedly bathed in their blood, believing it held the key to eternal youth. This macabre practice, if it indeed occurred, would have been a desperate and horrific attempt to cling to her fading beauty. The image of a noble woman bathing in blood has become one of the most enduring and chilling aspects of her legend. While the exact details of Bathory's crimes are debated, her legend remains a chilling reminder of the seductive power of vanity and the depths of human depravity. The stories of her actions have been passed down through generations, each retelling adding to the horror and fascination that surrounds her name. Her story, whether truth or exaggeration, added another layer to the growing tapestry of the vampire myth. The Blood Countess has become a symbol of the dark side of human nature, a cautionary tale of what can happen when vanity and power are left unchecked. Her legacy continues to haunt the annals of history, a grim reminder of the potential for evil that lies within us all. Section 5. Folklore and Fear. Understanding Early Vampire Myths. The legends of Vlad the Impaler and Elizabeth Bathory demonstrate how historical figures could be absorbed into the vampire myth. Vlad the Impaler, known for his brutal methods of punishment, and Elizabeth Bathory, infamous for her alleged crimes against young women, became the perfect templates for the vampire archetype. Their real-life actions were so horrifying that they naturally lent themselves to the creation of monstrous legends. These figures were not just feared in their own time, but have continued to haunt the collective imagination for centuries. However, the roots of vampire folklore run far deeper. They stretch back to ancient civilizations, where the fear of the dead returning to life was a common theme. This fear was not confined to one culture or one period in history, but was a widespread phenomenon. From the ancient Mesopotamians to the Greeks and Romans, stories of the dead rising from their graves to harm the living were prevalent. These early myths laid the groundwork for the vampire legends that would later emerge in Europe. Across cultures, common threads emerge in the tapestry of early vampire myths. Despite the geographical and cultural differences, many societies shared similar fears and beliefs about the undead. For instance, the Chinese had the Zhangshi, a reanimated corpse that would suck the life force from the living, while in India, the Vitala was a spirit that inhabited corpses. These similarities suggest that the fear of the undead is a universal human experience, transcending cultural boundaries. These commonalities reveal a shared human fear of the undead and the unknown. The idea that the dead could return to life and harm the living taps into some of our deepest anxieties. It is a fear that speaks to our uncertainty about what happens after death and our vulnerability to forces beyond our control. This fear of the unknown is a powerful motivator, driving people to create stories and rituals to protect themselves from what they cannot understand. One common element is the association of vampires with disease. In many cultures, outbreaks of disease were often attributed to the presence of vampires. This connection makes sense when you consider the symptoms of diseases like tuberculosis, which can cause a person to waste away and appear as though their life force is being drained. In the absence of scientific explanations, people turned to supernatural causes to explain the spread of illness. In an era before modern medicine, diseases were often inexplicable and terrifying. The sudden onset of illness and the rapid spread of disease could decimate entire communities, leaving people desperate for answers. Without an understanding of germs and viruses, the idea of a vampire draining the life from its victims provided a convenient explanation. This belief in vampires as the cause of disease also led to various protective measures being taken to prevent the dead from rising. People sought explanations for the sudden and unexplained deaths that plagued their communities. The fear of the unknown and the need to make sense of tragedy led to the creation of vampire myths. These myths provided a way to understand and cope with the loss of loved ones. By attributing deaths to the actions of vampires, people could find a sense of control and a way to protect themselves from further harm. Vampires, with their thirst for blood and life force, offered a convenient scapegoat. They became the embodiment of all the fears and anxieties that people had about death and disease. The image of a vampire draining the life from its victims was a powerful metaphor for the way that illness could ravage a community. This metaphor was so compelling that it persisted for centuries, influencing the way that people thought about and dealt with disease. They became a physical manifestation of unseen forces that could drain the life from a person, leaving behind a withered husk. This image of the withered corpse was a stark reminder of the power of death and the fragility of life. It reinforced the idea that the dead could still pose a threat to the living, even after they had been buried. This fear of the dead returning to life was a powerful motivator for the development of protective rituals and practices. Another common element is the emphasis on protecting the living from the dead. Across cultures, people developed various rituals and practices to prevent the dead from rising again. These rituals were often elaborate and involved a range of protective measures, from burying the dead with certain objects to performing specific ceremonies. The goal was always the same: to ensure that the dead stayed dead and did not return to harm the living. Rituals and practices developed to prevent the recently deceased from rising again. These practices were often based on the belief that the dead could be reanimated by supernatural forces. By taking certain precautions, people believed they could protect themselves from this threat. These rituals varied widely from culture to culture, reflecting the diverse ways that people understood and dealt with the fear of the undead. These rituals varied from culture to culture. In some places, the dead were buried with objects that were believed to have protective powers, such as garlic or holy symbols. In others, the bodies were mutilated or dismembered to prevent them from rising. These practices reflect the deep-seated fear that the dead could return to life and the lengths that people would go to in order to protect themselves from this possibility. They included burying the dead face down, staking them to the ground, and placing protective objects in their graves. These measures were intended to prevent the dead from rising and to protect the living from their potential wrath. The use of stakes in particular became a common practice in many cultures, symbolizing the need to pin the dead to the ground and keep them from returning to life. These practices highlight the very real fear that the dead could return to torment the living. This fear was not just a product of superstition, but was rooted in the very real experiences of disease and death that people faced. The rituals and practices that developed around the fear of the undead were a way for people to cope with these experiences and to find a sense of control in a world that often seemed chaotic and unpredictable. These shared elements in early vampire folklore suggest a universal human anxiety about mortality, disease, and the power of the unknown. The fear of the undead is a reflection of our deeper fears about death and the unknown. It is a fear that has persisted throughout history and continues to influence the way that we think about and deal with death today. Vampires embodied these fears, becoming a catch-all for the unexplainable and the terrifying. They are a testament to the power of myth and the ways that we use stories to make sense of the world around us. The vampire myth has evolved over time, but its roots in our deepest fears and anxieties remain the same. By understanding these early myths, we can gain insight into the ways that we have tried to understand and cope with the mysteries of life and death. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more chilling stories.